We won't pay your tuition. You are a big failure, and you do not deserve it. My parents said after my twin sister and I got accepted into the same culinary school. They were paying hers in full. I didn't give up. I simply went away in tears. 2 years later, my parents were shocked when they found out what I did. My letter arrived on a Tuesday. Heavy cream-colored envelope with embossed lettering that caught the sunlight streaming through our kitchen window. My fingers trembled as I slid my thumb beneath the seal. I already knew what it contained. The subject line of the email preview had betrayed its secret days ago, but there was something sacred about holding the physical confirmation in my hands. I got in, I whispered, then louder. I got in, the words burst from me like a prayer finally answered. Thornfield Academy's culinary program accepted me. My twin sister Ruby was sprawled across the sofa, pretending to read a book while scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up. Mother and father sat at the breakfast nook, matching porcelain cups between them, the steam from their coffee curling into the air. Neither moved. Did you hear me? I stepped closer, letter extended. Thornfield accepted me. The apprenticeship program, the one I've been talking about for years. Mother sipped her coffee, eyes flicking toward father. That's nice, Jade. The silence that followed felt deliberate, heavy with something unspoken. Then Ruby's phone chimed, the sound slicing through the tension. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting from boredom to something else entirely. Would you look at that? She said, voice dripping with artificial surprise. I just got my acceptance email from Thornfield, too. The room changed. Mother's cup clattered against its saucer as she stood. Ruby, that's wonderful news, she rushed to her, hands clasping her shoulders. Thornfield Academy, we always knew you had it in you. Father rose too, slower but with unmistakable pride. Well done, sweetheart. Their culinary program is world-class. I stood frozen, the letter dangling from my fingers. We both got in, I said, the words coming out smaller than intended. We both applied to the same program. Mother glanced at me, her smile tightening. Of course, dear. That's nice. Nice. The word felt like sand in my mouth. I've been cooking since I was 9. I've catered local events. I've apprenticed at 3 different restaurants. This has been my dream for as long as I can remember. Father cleared his throat. Ruby has natural talent. You know that. Natural talent. I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. Ruby didn't even know how to make an omelet until last year. She only applied because I was applying. That's not true, Ruby said, finally putting down her phone. I've always been interested in culinary arts. I just never talked about it. You've never even cooked a family meal? I said, my voice rising. Not once. Mother's eyes narrowed. Jade, don't be petty. Your sister doesn't need to prove herself to you. I felt dizzy, like the floor beneath me had suddenly tilted. I'm not being petty. I'm stating facts. This has been my dream for years, and suddenly it's hers too. Perhaps, Father said, his voice carrying that warning tone I knew too well, you should be happy for your sister instead of making this about yourself. I pressed my lips together, throat tight with unshed tears. Ruby smirked at me over Mother's shoulder. That night, I approached them again. They were in Father's study, Mother perched on the leather armchair, Father at his desk, both of them reviewing documents I recognized as Thornfield's enrollment papers. I want to talk about the academy, I said, hovering in the doorway. About tuition and housing arrangements. Father didn't look up. What about them? Well, the deposit is due next week and… We're handling Ruby's enrollment, Mother interrupted. You don't need to worry about that. Something cold settled in my stomach. What about mine? Father finally looked up, his expression unreadable. Jade, we need to be honest with you. Mother straightened, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her skirt. We won't be training you in college. The funds we've set aside are for Ruby. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. What? The culinary program is expensive, Father said flatly. We can only afford to send one of you, and we've decided that will be Ruby. But… My voice cracked. The fund was for both of us. You always said when we turned 18. Plans change, Mother cut in. Ruby has shown more dedication. More dedication? The words felt like a physical blow. I've been working in kitchens since I was 15. I've built a portfolio. I've gotten recommendations from professional chefs. And you've been defiant and difficult, Father countered. Always arguing, always challenging. Ruby understands the value of listening and following direction. Following direction? I echoed. She follows nothing. She barely passed high school. She's never held a job for more than 3 months. That's enough. Father's hand slammed down on the desk. This is exactly what we're talking about. You're a failure, Jade. You fail to respect authority. You fail to understand your place. You fail to see that your attitude is why you don't deserve our support. The words hit like individual knives, each one finding its mark with surgical precision. Mother didn't contradict him. She just watched, her eyes cold. You are a failure, she repeated, her voice soft but carrying the weight of a judge's gavel. And we don't invest in failures. Ruby appeared in the doorway behind me, her presence like a shadow. She didn't speak, but her silence carried its own message. She'd won. I left their house that night, tears streaming down my face as I threw clothes into a duffel bag. My Aunt Vivian took me in, my mother's estranged sister who'd always been the family outcast. Her apartment was small, barely big enough for one person, let alone two. But she made space for me on her pull-out couch. They'll come around, she said that first night, stroking my hair as I sobbed. When they see how determined you are. But they didn't. And I refused to give up. The next 2 years were a blur of exhaustion and determination. I worked 3 jobs, morning shifts at a bakery, afternoon prep work at a bistro, and weekend catering gigs. I slept when I could, often just 4 hours a night. I saved every penny, living on leftovers from work and wearing the same 5 outfits until they frayed at the seams. Aunt Vivian never complained about me taking up space in her tiny apartment, even when my cooking experiments filled the place with strange smells or when I came home at 3 a.m. from late catering events. She believed in me when no one else did. I didn't go to Thornfield. The tuition was beyond what I could manage, even with loans. Instead, I pieced together my education, online courses, community college classes, workshops with local chefs. I documented everything, building a portfolio that proved my commitment. My parents never called, never texted. I saw them once, accidentally, at a farmer's market. They were with Ruby, loading bags into their car. They saw me too, I know they did, but they turned away, pretending I was a stranger. I heard about Ruby sometimes, through mutual acquaintances or social media. She dropped out of Thornfield after the first semester. Wasn't challenging enough, she claimed. Then she was traveling through Europe, posting photos of herself in front of famous restaurants she'd never work in. My parents funded it all, calling it her culinary tour. Meanwhile, I was working 16-hour days, my hands cracked and bleeding from constant washing, my feet swollen from standing. But something was happening, something unexpected. The head chef at the bistro noticed my dedication. He started teaching me, really teaching me, the kind of techniques and secrets you don't find in textbooks. You have something rare, he told me one night as we closed the kitchen. Hunger. Not just for food, but for mastery. By the beginning of the second year, I wasn't just staff, I was creating specials that sold out nightly. Customers began asking for me by name. A local food blogger wrote about my innovative approach to traditional techniques. The owner offered me a partnership track. I moved out of Aunt Vivian's into a small studio apartment of my own. It wasn't much, but every inch of it was mine, earned through my own sweat and determination. The night I moved in, I sat on my mattress on the floor, eating takeout noodles and crying, not from sadness, but from a fierce, burning pride. I built my life piece by piece, created a brand around myself. My catering business grew from small private parties to corporate events. I saved, invested, expanded. I hired staff. I was 22 and running a successful culinary business while my classmates were still finishing their degrees. Then came the night that changed everything. I was catering a charity gala, the kind of high-profile event that can make or break a reputation. The venue was an old mansion on the outskirts of town, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers. My team and I had created a menu that showcased local ingredients with global techniques, the signature style that had become my calling card. I was plating the third course when my sous chef touched my arm. "Someone's asking for you," she said, at the entrance to the kitchen. I wiped my hands, straightened my chef's coat, and walked toward the swinging doors. I expected a guest with dietary concerns, or perhaps the event coordinator with a last-minute change. Instead, I found my parents. 2 years had aged them. Father's hair had gone completely gray. Mother looked thinner, her always perfect makeup not quite hiding the tired lines around her eyes. They stood awkwardly, out of place in the busy kitchen corridor. "Jade," Mother said, her voice barely audible over the kitchen noise. I didn't answer, just waited, heart hammering against my ribs. "Could we speak somewhere private?" Father asked. I glanced at my watch. "I'm in the middle of service. I have 4 minutes." Mother's eyes widened slightly at my tone, but she nodded. I led them to a small office near the kitchen, leaving the door open. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me trapped. "We saw your name on the event program," Father said. "We didn't realize we didn't know you were doing so well." "What do you want?" The words came out colder than I'd intended, but I didn't soften them. They exchanged glances. Mother took a small step forward. "It's Ruby," she said. "She's in trouble." Something twisted in my chest, an old reflex of concern for my twin that I couldn't quite extinguish. "What kind of trouble?" "Financial trouble," Father said, his voice strained. "She's been irresponsible." I barked out a laugh. "That's not news." "She owes money," Mother continued, "to people who won't be patient about collecting. And we've exhausted our resources," Father admitted. "The house is mortgaged to its limit. Our retirement accounts are depleted. We've given her everything we could." "Still not hearing how this involves me," I said, checking my watch again. 2 minutes left. "We need help," Mother whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Your sister needs help." I studied them, these people who had broken my heart and called me a failure to my face, who had chosen Ruby over me at every turn, who had told me I didn't deserve their support. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You're asking me, the failure, the one who didn't deserve your investment, to bail out the daughter you chose over me?" Father flinched. "We made mistakes, Jade. We see that now." "Do you?" I stepped closer. "Do you see that you destroyed me? That you took everything from me, my confidence, my security, my family, all because you couldn't see past your golden girl? Do you understand what it's like to hear your own parents call you a failure?" "We were wrong," Mother sobbed. "So wrong." "How much does she need?" I asked. Father named a figure that would have bankrupted me 2 years ago. Now, it was substantial, but not impossible. "And if I help," I continued, "what happens then? You go back to your lives, Ruby gets another chance she won't appreciate, and I get what?" "Our gratitude," Father said weakly. "Our love." I laughed again, the sound harsh in the small room. "Your love. As if it's worth anything. As if it can't be withdrawn the moment I disappoint you again." A timer beeped on my phone. My 4 minutes were up. "I have to get back to my kitchen," I said. "My staff is waiting. My clients are waiting. People who actually value what I bring to the table." "Please." Mother reached for my hand. I pulled away.
"Please, Jade."
"She's your sister." "And I'm your daughter," I replied. "Or I was. Before you threw me away." I walked to the door, then paused, turning back to them. "I'll think about it. Not for you. Maybe for her, though God knows she doesn't deserve it either. Leave your contact information with my assistant at the front." I returned to the kitchen, hands steady despite the storm inside me. We finished service flawlessly. The client was ecstatic. My team celebrated with champagne after cleanup. I smiled and laughed with them, never letting on that my past had come back to haunt me. That night, alone in my apartment, no longer a studio but a spacious one-bedroom with a kitchen I designed myself, I sat at my window, staring at the business card my father had left. I could help them. I had the means. But something held me back, not spite, but self-preservation. 3 days later, I had my answer. Not just for them, but for myself. I invited them to my apartment. They arrived looking hopeful, desperate. Ruby wasn't with them. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to my dining table. They obeyed, like children waiting to be scolded. "I've thought about your request," I began. "And I've made some inquiries. Ruby doesn't just owe money to creditors.
She's gambling.
She's using drugs. The people after her aren't just debt collectors, they're dangerous." Mother's hand flew to her mouth. Father's shoulders slumped. "I won't give you money," I continued. "It would only enable her. Instead, I've arranged for her to enter a rehabilitation facility. A good one, with a work program that teaches life skills. I've paid for 6 months up front." "Rehabilitation?" Father repeated, stunned. "It's that or bankruptcy, and possibly worse for her," I said. "Those are the options. I've spoken to her directly. She's agreed." "You spoke to Ruby?" Mother looked bewildered.
Yes.
"Something you should have done years ago instead of just writing checks." My voice was calm, steady. "She's been admitted as of this morning." Silence fell between us. Finally, Father spoke. "Thank you," he said quietly. "We don't deserve your help." "No, you don't," I agreed. "But this isn't for you. It's for me. So I can finally close this chapter and move forward. Can we be part of that future?" Mother asked hesitantly. I considered her question carefully. "I don't know. You broke something in me that I had to rebuild on my own. I'm not the same person you abandoned."
We see that, Father said.
"We see what you've become. It's remarkable." "Yes," I said, allowing myself a small smile. "It is remarkable. I am remarkable. Despite you, not because of you." I stood, signaling that our meeting was ending. "Ruby will be allowed visitors after 30 days. If you want to help her, really help her, you'll respect the program's rules. And you'll get counseling yourselves to understand why you created this situation." They nodded, subdued, broken in ways I had once been. As they walked to the door, Mother turned back. "We were so wrong about you, Jade. So terribly wrong." "Yes," I said simply. "You were." After they left, I opened my balcony doors and breathed in the night air. There was no triumph in their downfall, no joy in Ruby's struggles. But there was something powerful in having become the person they never believed I could be, in having the strength to help them despite everything they'd done. The true revenge wasn't in turning them away. It was in becoming so magnificently, undeniably successful that they had to face the enormity of their mistake. It was in standing before them not as a supplicant, but as a savior. It was in showing them exactly what they had thrown away. 2 years later, my first cookbook hit the bestseller list. The dedication page read, "For Aunt Vivian, who gave me shelter when I had nothing. And for myself, the failure who refused to fail." My parents attended the launch party. We're not close. Some wounds go too deep for complete healing. But they stood in line like everyone else, bought their copy, and asked me to sign it. Ruby was there too, 1 year sober, working as a prep cook at a diner and taking night classes. "I'm proud of you," I told her as she awkwardly congratulated me. "I don't deserve that," she replied, surprising me with her self-awareness. "But I'm working on it." As I signed books that night, a young woman approached my table, eyes shining with admiration. "Your story inspired me to leave home and pursue culinary school despite my parents' disapproval," she said. "I was wondering, do you have any advice?" I looked up at her, saw my younger self reflected in her nervous hope, and smiled. "Yes," I said, taking her hand. "Never let anyone tell you what you deserve. You decide that for yourself, every single day, through your actions and your determination. And when you succeed, because you will, remember to build a table big enough for those who believed in you, but never reserve seats for those who didn't." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and I felt something inside me finally heal completely, not because my parents had acknowledged their mistakes, but because in helping this girl, I had transformed my pain into purpose. That, I realized, was the most satisfying revenge of all. If my story of resilience touched you, don't let it disappear into the void. Just like my parents regretted dismissing my talent, you'll regret scrolling away without taking action. Every like proves to doubters that stories of triumph matter. Every share helps someone else fighting their own battle against people who've given up on them. Subscribe now because unlike those who abandon me, you recognize real value when you see it. Don't be the person who walks away when something extraordinary is right in front of you. Prove you're better than that. Like, share, and subscribe now. Your single click might be the validation someone desperately needs today.